This episode of Tools for the Future is all about how to fix the typical SWOT analysis. I know this is likely to be controversial because I'm going to disagree with about 99% of all strategic processes out there, but with good reason. The SWOT analysis is simply a set of lists, the organization's or perhaps a product's biggest strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's what's represented by the S, W, O, and T. Most business people are taught to simply fill these in like a form. They list everything they can think of, either alone or as a group, and this is just incredibly lazy. It also mixes internal and external factors. But the most important thing is that none of these come from research, so none of them are validated. Do customers really base their decision on these? What you need to focus upon are the decision drivers, those things that actually impact your customers' decisions and how they make them. Lastly, what's missing from these lists? All of these things that you're not paying attention to, and how do you find them? So nothing on these lists is actually valid. How do you really know, for instance, that fast or perfection or Disney are what customers want? Where is the rigor, the proof, or the research? And what's the point of research if people are just going to fill in the blanks based on their best guesses? This is a phenomenon that plagues most strategy. In order to do real SWOT analysis, we need to first do environmental analysis. That is, we need to look at the market context. This part of the process comes from a company called Regis McKenna. It was developed for a project from one of their clients when they didn't have much time and they really needed to understand quickly what was happening in the market, what their best opportunities were, and how to move forward. But really, when isn't that the case? The Regis McKenna Crush process narrows everything down to 3 basic steps: environmental analysis, competitive analysis, and positioning. The important thing to understand here is that the outcome of one process becomes the input of another. This is the case all the way to the end. You can see how if you've asked the wrong questions or you've started with the wrong data, you could compound your work and get the wrong answers. The other important thing to keep in mind here is that if you only look for quantitative data like features or price and performance, that's all you're going to get out of the process. That would be a big mistake. Numbers don't tell the entire story. They don't even tell the most important or most valuable parts of the story. Without qualitative data, the SWOT analysis is driven by incomplete data. One challenge is that most people aren't ever taught how to research and evaluate qualitative data, or simply don't believe that it's important. Worse still, some people don't even think it exists, but both are important. Market research normally only uncovers quantitative data. That's how most of their techniques are oriented. You'll need to use qualitative research methods to get to the qualitative data, like those found in design research methods. You can see as designers exactly where we can play into this work. Designers are trained to research the qualitative and to make sense of it. So, how do we do effective environmental analysis? We can start with stakeholder analysis. There's an episode in my channel specifically about how to do this. Not all these stakeholders will be applicable to every project. When you address your stakeholder ecosystem, you may quickly narrow the number of relevant stakeholders. But be careful that you're not simply reducing your amount of work and unknowingly crossing off important sectors that you'll need to keep your eyes on. Next, research the biggest issues, trends, impacts, and for any decision makers, the drivers of those decisions. Be sure to separate external customer market drivers from internal ones that are specific to your organization. We'll use the first set for now and the second set a little later. Again, the qualitative decision drivers are the most important issues to uncover, though quantitative issues will be important too. What we're left with after this process is a list we need to prioritize, from most important to least. You're likely not going to be able to track more than about 10 decision drivers, and that's okay. These are the most important market factors for your organization or your offering. Now we're ready for competitive analysis. List these top decision drivers and then create columns for what you think are your biggest competitors. Always include a competitor X if you can. This represents the competitor you may not know about yet. It might be a startup in stealth mode. It may be a new project or division within an existing company. Next, rate your organization or offering to those of your competitors. You can do this as simple pluses and minuses, but it would be best to have a little bit more resolution and do it in terms of numbers from 1 to 5, for instance, with 5 being the highest. If you have trouble imagining, and most people do, how to fill in for competitor X, just assume Apple or Tesla or some other hyper-innovative company is about to enter your market. It doesn't really matter if they ever would or not, or if they have any current expertise in your market. Imagine that they do anyway. That's the thing you need to worry about. At this point, it should be easy to identify yours and your competitors' strengths and weaknesses. Let's review quickly. You now have a list of issues that drive your customers' buying decisions, ranked in importance, that cover both qualitative and quantitative factors. This is your market context. These are validated by your customer research and insight. Only now are you ready for the SWOT analyses that most people jump to first. Now, when you transfer these decision drivers to your SWOT, you should notice they're completely different than what you would have had before. That's because you've identified issues you didn't know about before. You've validated them with customers, and you've compared them accurately against your competitors' capabilities. Your SWOT is derived from that research, not guessed at, as is all too commonly done. Notice also, we've only listed strengths and weaknesses so far. Next, you can derive your best opportunities and worst threats based on the same competitive analysis. Your best opportunities are those where you have strengths and your competitors have weaknesses. In this case, your only real opportunity is to develop and sell against the one strength you have where your competitors are weak. The rest of your strengths have competitors with similar strengths. Now, you could consider the last one an opportunity, but only against those specific competitors where they're weak. From an internal perspective, you should consider strengthening that strength even more because you have an opportunity to become even stronger faster than your competitors. But that's not the same as already having a strong or sustainable market opportunity. It's definitely something that you should make a practical priority, however. Lastly, you have 2 strong threats based on your competitors being so much stronger than you in these issues. You should make these part of your tactical priorities as well to lessen their impact on your sales. They shouldn't be ignored, but they aren't your first priority either. If you were to plot all of the decision drivers for yourself and your competitors, we start to get a map of opportunities. This is the start of finding the most apt positioning. What you're looking for is a place where you have a piece of the market to yourself, a hole in the field. You may have to plot the data from your competitive analysis using different pairs of decision drivers to find something appropriate. Don't just use the top 2. But beware of holes in the market that aren't served well currently by you or others. There may be a very good reason why no one serves that part of the market. Probably that there's no business there. In other words, there may not be enough customers or any customers at all to support those offerings. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make in searching for a blue ocean strategy. That's a market opportunity with no real competitors, a market that you have all to yourself. In reality, these are extremely rare and sometimes difficult to cultivate even when you do find them. You only want market opportunities that are real markets. Now we're ready for positioning. Once you have found the most important differentiable decision drivers for your customers that you can take best advantage of and that have been validated by research, you can use them as the focus for your positioning statement. You can find many variations of these online, but they're all mostly the same. This is a statement about focus, and this focus has come from derived, validated research. I can't stress this enough. Compare this to how positioning is nearly always done out in the world. Just as with the SWOT, a person or a group gets together and starts filling in a template with things that they think are important. There's no research, and therefore there's no validation of these things. They do the same with the blank spaces in a positioning statement and consider themselves finished. But realize that this is an incredibly meaningless exercise of Mad Libs, which is a children's game. If you aren't bothering to first do valid environmental analysis, then take those results to competitive analysis, and then use the outcome for your positioning, it just makes no sense to do this step at all. As crazy as it sounds, most market strategy just doesn't do these steps or does them out of order. I'll repeat myself again because it's so critical and so often ignored. The outcome of one step becomes the input for the next. Doing them independently or doing them out of order both waste your time and your resources, but will also very likely lead you astray. At this point, you've developed your market context. You understand your best opportunities in the market. Now you can look at your operational context, the internal strategy you'll need to meet those market opportunities. This is where that list of internal issues and impacts that we put aside earlier comes back. You need to consider these impacts and issues in terms of your operational capabilities. You will take these issues and rank them just like you did with the external ones, and then compare them to your competitors, again, just like you did with the market decision drivers. Instead of ending at positioning, you'll use the results to create internal priorities to focus upon to build on your strengths, lessen your weaknesses and threats, and take advantage of the opportunities you've identified. This list will be of internal operational factors that will help you be successful in the market. These rankings will lead you to an internal version of your SWOT analysis, almost as important, but still a very different list from your external issues. What often happens in companies is that because they've combined external market-driven drivers with internal operational ones, too often the market ones fall down the list and never get considered at all. Imagine developing your market strategy not on your customer and market needs, but on your own internal capabilities. There, now you understand why so many startups fail. Next, you can derive your best opportunities and worst threats based on the same competitive analysis. Your best opportunities are those where you have strengths and your competitors have weaknesses. In this case, your only real opportunity is to develop and sell against the one strength you have where your competitors are weak. The rest of your strengths have competitors with similar strengths. Now, you could consider the last one an opportunity, but only against those specific competitors that are weak there. From an internal perspective, you should consider strengthening that strength even more because you have an opportunity to become stronger there than your competitors. But that's not the same as already having a strong or sustainable market opportunity. It's definitely something you should make a practical priority, however. Lastly, you have two strong threats here based on your competitors being so much stronger than you in these issues. You should make these part of your tactical priorities as well to lessen their impact on your sales. Now that you have both your internal and external priorities identified, you can build your market strategy and your business strategy. Doing so before or without doing these two steps first is a recipe for disaster. Your management or business strategy is mostly about the clarity of communication of the previous steps, both in terms of external communication to your customers and market, and internal communication to your employees and partners. Only now should you consider your mission, messaging, and business model. Likewise, now you have the needed understanding to address your organization's impact, both socially and ecologically, your internal culture, and how teams should both be set up and operate within your organization. Vision is the least important part of this because it needs to be based on an understanding of the future, developed through a process of strategic foresight, and I'll cover that in a later episode. This isn't everything you need to do, of course, but hopefully this process and sequence sets you up for success. Certainly, this is a more informed and validated way to do a SWOT analysis. Thank you.